name is August Michael. We're doing a Mentor Monday today. I'll have my guest introduce herself.
Hi, y'all. My name is Meredith Dunn. My pronouns are she, her. I'm 24 years old. I'm a local from Franklin, grew up here, went to Page High School, and I am the current president of the Williamson County Young Democrats.
What got you into the Young Democrats? What was your first introduction to it?
So I was first introduced to the Young Democrats when I moved back here after my first year of college. My first year of college wrapped up with the beginning of the pandemic in spring of 2020, so that was a fun time. Yeah. And so I wound up transferring to a school back here. Just to be closer to my support system during the really messed up time. And slowly over the next year, as you know, we were able to kind of start getting back out and everything. I was trying to find my place in Franklin as a young adult, since a lot of the people that I knew when I was in high school weren't there anymore. And so I first met somebody from the Young Dems at the first Franklin Pride. So they were there with the rest of the Williamson County Democratic Party. I found out it was a thing, and it was honestly my mom who was kind of like, Meredith, you should join this group. And of course I thought it was awkward and embarrassing at the time, but you know, it's something I've wound up being really grateful for. The then president, Ben Jones, was one of my best friends now. And he hired me on a political campaign he was working on at the time. So he went from kind of being my boss, and then I started to go to more meetings and realized there were more people like me who were young adults and honestly just needed to know they weren't alone in Williamson County as being liberal folks here. And you know, that kind of started my introduction to the group.
What does being in the Young Democrats entail? Like, what do you do at, like, say, an average meeting?
Honestly, I think that has kind of changed over time. We used to have regular monthly kind of business meetings. And I would say over the past year, we've shifted course with that. Just because, you know, with the November election of last year being so monumental on every single different level from local to federal, we noticed that younger folks were just needing different things at the time. You know, a lot of us were really burnt out after putting so much of ourselves into some of those races last fall that we just kind of needed the emotional comfort. And so we checked in with our community, and, you know, it sounded like what they needed were, you know, just events to make more friends and to help us through that really emotional time of kind of November, December. And so we started doing more social events and just doing things to remind us that even in a darkening world, it was okay to feel joy. And that we needed to be intentional about making space for that, because at least for me, that was the one thing that kept me from going as dark as I could have after that election. And so being intentional about making space for joy and coming together with our loved ones and with our friends, I think made a world of a difference. So with that, we launched a community input survey this summer, and we're just trying to figure out what events, you know, our community wanted to see from us. And so we've started to try to do kind of a mix of that. So we do a lot of social nights, like I said. So we do, you know, a game night at the Williamson County Democratic Party headquarters. We've done some sign making parties before protests. And so those are kind of the mix of things that we're trying to explore. And you know, as the way that it's changing how people are engaging with politics right now, especially young folks, we're just attempting to do new things right now. So, you know, whether that be a new kind of restaurant that we're going to go have a social night at, or something new activity-wise we want to do out in our community, we're just trying to, you know, make sure that we're exploring how we can best connect with folks in our community.
And on that topic, in the face of work that you're doing, how do you stay motivated and faithful that change is possible in a time like this?
Yeah, so honestly, I think I'm not going to downplay it. It has been a really hard year. And I mean, there's no getting around that. For me personally, this year has been especially challenging. I have developed a chronic illness and have a whole load of health issues that I've been trying to navigate in a country that's hell-bent on, you know, making healthcare less accessible for a lot of folks. So that, on top of, you know, being a young queer woman in Tennessee, has been incredibly challenging. And I think similar to what I mentioned earlier, I think what has been helping me stay motivated through most of that is seeking out other queer people in queer spaces, because those are the people that I feel build me up the most, and where I can be most myself, both, in my identity and whatever emotions I'm feeling at the time, where we can just feel however we're feeling without any expectation to perform otherwise.
Right.
And sometimes a lot of what we do as the Young Dems are just giving you spaces where you can commiserate with other people,
Right.
as silly as that sounds, because there's a lot of people and organizations where their public facing personas are going to tell you to feel one thing and that you got to be doing this thing right now. And we realize that it's frequently a lot more complex than that, and things aren't so black and white. And so I think, again, kind of one of our goals with the Young Dems is just to be able to help you, experience the fullness of whatever you're going through, and finding your people and connecting and leaning on them is, I think, the most important part in figuring out how you move on through something so difficult.
Right.
Because this is no small thing. Obviously, I don't think anybody has the perfect answer for that. But again, I think reminding ourselves that when things are so dark, it's okay for us to feel joy and to experience happiness. I think that is one of the most important parts of organizing and how you move through something like that.
How would you say you're able to reconcile, if at all, your identity as a Southern queer woman with, living in this state, but also being a part of the South and being a part of Southern culture, like you grew up here? Specifically, I guess, for me personally, like I've been getting into a lot of like Appalachian like folk music and stuff like that recently, and it's been kind of a strange experience for me because it's like you're not necessarily welcome in a lot of these spaces as a queer person, but it's still where you're from and where you grew up and stuff like that. So what's been your experience with that, if at all?
Yeah, I can't say I've had extensive experience with those worlds colliding necessarily. It's mainly more so been within my own household. So
Right.
So we kind of had like a merge of household geographically. So my dad's side of the family is all from the South, born and raised here, and then my mom is from Minneapolis. And it's it's actually been very enlightening about how those things don't necessarily mean a level of acceptance with my family from the North and vice versa from the South. So I am lucky to have a lot of support within my family from a lot of sides. My dad's mom, who is very Southern, who I get, even though I don't super identify as being a Southern woman, as silly as that sounds, like I get a lot of my taste in food from her, where I love the stuff that she and I cooked in her kitchen growing up. And so like when I'm around here, my Southern accent starts to come out and things like that. And then, on the flip side, my grandma from Minnesota just learned I was bi probably within the last month, and was super shocked and not feeling great about that. So it's a weird space to be in.
Right.
Culturally, I feel like a lot of the stuff that I find myself doing with other queer people around here doesn't luckily conflict with that too much. At least me and my friends, we're like grandparents. We like to just stay in it and drink wine and just watch TV.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we wind up engaging in as much of the queer culture that takes place in a lot of the nightlife.
Right.
Which is, I guess, mainly my main irk, is that like most of the time, in order to be in a lot of the prevalent queer spaces, it's all kind of like downtown nightlife, which is a little hard to do.
And that's the real tea.
Yeah, and especially like in Williamson County, everything closes at 8.
Right.
So even if you wanted to push it a little bit, there's not a lot of spaces to engage in that happen, in those hours. So yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. It's something where I think, though, you find there are a lot more local queer people than we realize necessarily, who are feeling the same as you. And so you gotta find kind of people who are engaging with those kind of things in the same way that you are, in a way you feel comfortable with, and making your joy where you can there. But yeah,
yeah.
like it's weird. A lot of those spaces are not. Yeah, my dad and I go to a lot of this like dad rock shows. And, like,
Oh yeah.
it's like a lot of old men.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of them, probably have like young queer daughters and stuff, so they're sometimes
The
fine too. And it's just a weird combination.
the dad rock dad to queer daughter pipeline is
It's
real, and it's
real.
coming
It's
for
so
you.
real.
And you need to be aware of that.
It's made my liked songs on Spotify playlist as the weirdest mix of things ever.
Well, yes, many such cases.
It's great.
Speaking of people being similar, that's a good transition. Y'all don't even know about that. We went to the same. Oh well, I'm still going to Page High School, but you also went to Page High School. What was your experience like then? And then I can give you a little anecdote.
I'm so curious to hear what it's like now. It was definitely not the most accepting space across the board. If you had if you were part of any club that had like a whisper of progressivism to it, you had your posters torn down for club meetings and stuff. So I had run a United Way Club when I was there. It's just like volunteering for nonprofits in Williamson County, right? Nothing overtly political. Not saying this is Democrat, right? And all of my posters would get torn down there because people were like, "That's not cool." But I will say I was really grateful to have, a select few of teachers who were awesome and super accepting and made it known that their classrooms were safe spaces. Do you feel like things have changed there?
Yeah, well, just from your description, absolutely. I mean, it's still an extremely conservative school, like on the whole, but I'm in a lot of higher level classes, not to toot my own horn.
No, you can, you should.
Ladies, one at a time. But there's this pattern that starts to happen when you're in higher level classes where those people they're just not in those classes. There's a bit of a correlation there.
Yeah.
So I didn't like come out publicly until publicly to my friends and people like know I'm trans at school until the end of the middle of last year, when I'd already been able to start taking more IPs and stuff like that. So I really get out of a lot of it, and part of it is also I have a neutral name, so I get out of a lot of it that way. But it's definitely become a lot more progressive. Like, I'm involved in an environmental club, and we have posters up, and that's never happened. We have kind of a lot of different people in that club from different backgrounds. It's become there's other options, kind of. They're very, very small groups, but you can find them. But it's still a lot of the same. Yeah.
Well, I hope that's comforting to an extent. I'm glad at least we're making marginal improvements.
Do you have any words of advice for young queer kids living in Williamson County or Tennessee in general?
Yeah, and so first off the bat, we've talked a lot about what keeps us motivated and hopeful and stuff right now. And the first thing that I would say is that if you're a young queer kid here, you have never been and will never be too much nor not enough. There are so many forces, be it from any political side, that is trying to dictate exactly how you should be. And I just want folks to know, if you're growing up queer here, you are lovable exactly as you are, first and foremost. And secondly, we obviously know that things are really hard right now, that there's a lot going on in the world. And it's hard to kind of understand your place in all of it and to know how you should be getting involved. I would ask that any young queer kids who feel safe enough to speak up and speak out, we really need your voices right now, because you'll have so much more power in your voices than you realize. There are so many people trying to say that young people are just the future, and the reality is you are the now. We absolutely need young people now, because there are frankly kindergartners who understand more about what we need to do to fix gun violence in America than most of the people in our state and federal legislatures. So young people do have a voice. We all need to be encouraged to listen. And so please, please, please speak up when you can. Please know that you're important, you're powerful, and we need you here. And as far as the Young Dems go, you will always have a safe and loving space with us.
Thank you all for watching this episode of Mentor Mondays. Thank you, Meredith, for being here.
Thank you, Iris, for having me.
Yeah.
See you next time.